Hello, everybody, and welcome to the lesson. We will be looking at non-defining relative clauses. So in a previous lesson, we did defining relative clauses. And so this one is a little bit different. So when you have non-defining relative clauses, the difference is, one, you're going to have a comma, and two, you have information that's extra information. It's not really descriptive information. So a defining relative clause without a comma is usually defining a word like an adjective, right? So they're giving information that describes what you're talking about. A non defining relative clause just gives extra information about the word you're talking about. So it's extra information and it's not needed. In that case, we actually add a comma. So we're going to look at how you can do that. So let's see if we can figure out the puzzle. So let's look at this first sentence. I live by the station. It gets very noisy at night. So if I type this in here, it's going to auto-populate. And the first thing I need to do is, because I'm going to combine the two sentences, is I need to put a comma. So I'm going to change the period to a comma. And then voila, I get the green light. It's correct. Now I have to change the subject pronoun to a relative pronoun. And in this case, it's going to be which. So I live by the station, and I'm going to go ahead and type this into auto-populate there. It gets very noisy at night. Now I just have to change it for the relative pronoun which, and I'm done. Now notice in this case, I can't use that. So one difference between the non-defining relative clause and the defining relative clause in the first unit is that you cannot use that. You can only use which. Also, you have to have a comma. All right, so let's go to the next one. I work with Alan. I think you met him at the party. So I'm going to go ahead and combine the sentences, which means I remove the period and put in a comma. Now I have to use a relative pronoun, and in this case, I'm going to have to use whom. So I work with Alan, whom I think you met at the party. And I'm going to go ahead and type that in, and voila, it's correct. Now, in the previous lesson, I said it doesn't matter if you use who or whom. When you're doing a non-defining relative clause, that means it comes after a comma, usually we'll say whom. Sometimes people will still say who, and the person will understand you. If I said, for example, I work with Alan, who I think you met at the party, it's okay. But it's more likely actually a native speaker will actually say whom in this case. The native speaker doesn't even know the grammar rule. So the grammar is deep in their head, just like the grammar for your language is deep in their head, and they will know instinctively to use whom instead of who, but you can actually still use who and it's okay. But don't worry, when we get to lesson 6, you'll learn when you must use whom always. Okay, so let's go to number 3. She works from home. It seems to be common these days. So I'm going to go ahead and type this in here. She works from home. So what's the first thing that I need to do? First, I must change the period to a comma. Then for the next sentence, what do I need to do? I need to change the subject pronoun to a relative pronoun. In this case, it would be which. And voila, she works from home, which seems to be very common these days. This actually is a very common use of a non-defining relative clause where it kind of refers to the whole sentence. So it's work from home. So it doesn't refer to home, it refers to the verb phrase, work from home. So we often use non-defining relative clauses when we're referring to an idea, right, or a concept, the entire message in the previous sentence, which was previously mentioned. So you can refer to just one noun, but you can also refer to a whole thought or idea. You can't do that with a defining relative clause. Excuse me. I have a raspy voice today. Okay, number 4, they drive an old car. It costs a lot to maintain. So I go ahead and type that in there. So here we have old car. We're just going to refer to old car, and it costs a lot to maintain. I'll go ahead and type that in there. So what do I have to do? First, I have to remove the period and add a comma, and then I have to add the relative pronoun, and it's it, so that would be which. right? So they drive an old sports car, which costs a lot to maintain. All right, number 5, he ended up quitting his job. It upset a lot of people. So he ended up quitting his job, comma, and then which upset a lot of people. So here, again, it's the whole concept. The concept of him quitting his job upset people. So we're not referring to job, we're referring to the entire verb phrase. Okay, number 6. We threw a party for Bob. Everyone loves and adores him. So what do? First, put a comma where the period is. Second, remove the object pronoun. Third, I have to add the relative pronoun. In this case, because I'm referring to the object, it's going to be whom, and it should be correct. We threw a party for Bob, whom everybody loves and adores. Okay, number 7. He decided to sell his big house. It makes sense because he is single. So I just remove the period with a comma, and I convert it to which, and get my big head out of the way there. There we go. And again, here, it is referring to the entire verb phrase, right? The concept. Number 8, I was paired with Joe in the contest. He just happens to be my neighbor. So here, I would remove the comma and I would do the relative pronoun. So because he is a subject pronoun, I'm going to say who, right? So it's the subject I'm referring to, so I would say who. I was paired with Joe in the contest, who just happens to be my neighbor. Okay, number 9. We live in a poor area. It unfortunately has lots of petty crime. So again, remove the period, add a comma, remove it as the subject pronoun, replace it with which, and we are done. By the way, petty crime is small crime. We say small crime sometimes, like theft, or mainly it's theft, like stealing stuff we consider petty crime. Okay, 10. He wears a suit to his college classes. It is unheard of for students these days. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in there. And again, I just have to put a comma. So he wears a suit to his college classes, which is unheard of for students these days. And I teach at university, and I never see students wear suits. They actually used to wear suits for their presentations. I don't even see them wear suits for their presentations anymore. So it's long gone. Everybody's in casual mode at university. And that's it. I hope this helped. Now you can do this yourself. So of course you can open up the links below, and you can either do this in Google Sheets or you can download it in Excel. You could actually even do it in LibreOffice and OpenOffice, I believe. So it should work. And you could practice making those relative clauses. And this type of structure is very common in like newspaper articles or more professional journals or magazines, in academic journals or academic textbooks. You'll see a lot of the non-defining relative clause. So you can kind of notice it when you are reading. And that's it. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and stay tuned for more.